like a marketplace at the moment. And they're probably full of world conference.
This is a lesson in a progressive comprehensive school. 100 14-year-olds are taking part in a mock-up of an international trade war.
This new process, which makes plastic clothes so cheap you can get...
In the last 6 months, progressive and comprehensive education have come under constant attack. Primary school teachers were suspended at William Tyndale in London. The findings of the Bennett survey suggested that traditional methods produce better test results in primary schools. Tameside Council defeated the government in the courts and kept their selective grammar schools. And today, the Commons returns to find that the House of Lords have severely weakened the government's bill to make comprehensive education compulsory. Yet this school sticks to its progressive principles. Tonight, World in Action observes the teachers, the pupils, and 2 anxious parents as they argue about an uncompromised school of thought. Countesthorpe College near Leicester was built 6 years ago, an upper school for 14 to 18-year-olds. It was planned to be progressive from the beginning. Its teaching methods have been described as the most advanced in Europe. Tonight, World in Action concentrates on the newcomers, the 14-year-olds who arrived just 1 month ago. The students work in what's no longer called a classroom, but a team area, with 100 students and 6 teachers, 4S. This boy is taking part in the biology lesson, learning what it's like to be blind. Blindfolded or not, students can walk about freely in the team area. They can sit where and with whom they like. They don't have to put their hands up to go to the lavatory. They can walk out of the team area to the library or any other part of the school. And they're called students, not pupils, since Countesthorpe is run more like a college than a school. Students work independently or in small groups. Radios are allowed as long as nobody complains.
Hey, can I see a minute?
Teachers and pupils are on first name terms. Each team reflects all levels of ability.
Yeah, what is stuck on?
Students are encouraged to help those who fall behind.
These log 14. Look, you get 40 on here. Which is the one before 15? Which is that one?
Change that number into one that will fit onto these tables. So you've moved it 6 pages. So you now look at 2.19.
Here a teacher works with one of the students while other conversations go on at the same table. Sometimes minds wander.
Not Pete. I'm not going to photographs.
Yeah.
Sure, Joseph.
He always gets me what Tim. Never anybody else.
Okay, now look, this is what you're stuck on. This is the example that you're doing. What's happening is this. It's simply, see what he's doing, it's showing you how to work out quite easily a problem that involves you multiplying a figure by a large figure that you can break down easily into 2 parts, into 2 factors. Okay, do the next one, just so I can see that you're okay.
Mark, could you work on it? I think you'll get more done if you work on your own. It's less easy.
You've got to work all the time. That's the point of all this. That you've got to work all the time. I don't want you just, you know, sort of thinking, I've done a lesson, so that's it for the day. I mean, you're here to work. That's, you know, I mean, you've done 1, 2, 3 things, and I helped you with 2 of them. In fact, I helped you with all of them. Then you didn't do anything else again. You know, you didn't stop. And then Sylv comes and writes it all in your book. I mean, that's obviously it's not. It's impossible for you to get any value out of the school unless you're going to make an effort yourself. So you're going to have to sit yourself down in a corner over there, and you're going to have to, you know, you're going to have to force yourself to it. And I'm going to keep nagging at you until you do get some work done. Is that all right, Mark? Well, that's it.
This is the lower coffee bar, one of the 2 areas where staff and students can smoke. Students need a letter of permission from their parents. With no staff rooms, students and staff snatch a break together. Perhaps due to the congenial atmosphere, fewer students truant from Countesthorpe than most other schools.
Well, you explain it to me. How does modern Birmingham develop from, I mean, what's the historical series of events which have led from that little hill fort there in a woodland in the middle of a woodland
more people...
Go through these photos then. There's a whole lot of interesting material about your city, you know, and the background to it and the history and development of it, and I'm sort of throwing out ideas at you at the moment, thinking that, right, 1 or 2 of you are going to be interested in 1 or 2 of these ideas, and you may get your own ideas from it. I mean, you don't have to do anything at all that I've just been suggesting. You know that, don't you? Well, you don't know that. You're saying you don't know that.
No. It's just we don't have to do any piece of work. But you see, if you don't do it, you're going to do something just as bad.
Well, I mean, OK, then, if you're really not interested in doing anything at all on the history and development of Leicester...
I don't want to do the shaping of England's landscapes.
OK, well, I mean, I was giving you that as a background to how Leicester City had developed in the way it had. You know, I mean, how modern industrial towns had developed. Well, what have you done here? Let's have a look. You've only just written... You've read the article, haven't you? Let's get the article out.
Yeah, it was very boring.
You think you've had enough?
Yeah, because we've been doing it all morning.
Yes, I mean, I agree with that.
We've done 3.5 pages this morning.
Oh,
so it's a lot.
No, you're not saying what I'm trying to get at. I'm not saying that you must not do that. You must sit down there, or you must get somewhere else. I'm asking you to say to me whether you think it's worthwhile going into the handicapped or not. That's what I want to know. Because I don't mind if you go in there as long as you're getting something out of it. But if you're only going in because you don't want to sit here and write, then that's a waste of time.
It's not because we don't want to work or anything. We don't mind writing, but it's just a change. To be writing all morning.
Countesthorpe is also a community college and many adults use the school. Every Wednesday, a group of local disabled people meets.
Yeah.
Students can choose to visit this group as part of their timetable, as they can the school creche. The creche is available for the children of parents, teachers and students. Away from school on a day trip to London, arguments fly about the pros and cons of Countesthorpe after the first few weeks.
We still don't agree on some of the rules, you know, what they do there.
What rules don't you agree on?
Calling the teachers by the first name.
Oh, what's wrong with
I
that?
still don't agree with that.
But they call us by our first name.
Oh, that's
So they go around going, Mr. Clark and
Think of
Mr.
the age
Madden.
barrier.
Oh, the
That's-
age
it's
barrier's
got-
got nothing to
That's
do
what I
with
do
it.
with this. Got to get on.
You're meant to be equal as a teacher.
Yeah, well,
as well.
it's just the way we're brought up.
I
That's why
don't
we're
think
not.
that calling the teachers by the first names and calling them Miss or Sir or anything's got nothing to do with how you work.
Did you have to call
They
your
don't affect
Did you have to call your
at all.
teachers sirs and moms?
No, just Mr. So-and-so and Mrs. and all that.
Did you get caned at things?
Boys did. We
What
did.
happened to
Why
the
can't the
girls?
girls get caned at sex discrimination?
Yes, sex discrimination out now.
What do you think of smoking in Council College?
Well, I think it's a good idea. Well, it's all right, but we don't smoke ourselves anyway, so...
If you don't smoke, you don't
No,
smoke.
say a kid starts to smoke and the parents find out and the child says to the parents say to them, don't smoke because they don't want you to. Well, it don't matter what the parents say, the kids are just going to smoke behind the parents' back.
And it doesn't make any difference because
Just
you
go and
go
and
into
smoke.
in break time. You're just going to the toilets anyway if you're told not to smoke.
Yeah,
don't
but
you?
I think it's
They
good
did
they
it out
never
with the
smoke
freely.
And I think it's a good idea for having a smoking area. Then anybody who don't want to smoke, they don't have to go in there, so they don't have to be in the atmosphere and smoke themselves. I think that's better.
About smoking and playing the radio in the lesson? I've seen you lot do it.
I don't smoke and I don't play the
Play
radio.
the radio when everyone's trying to work. What do you think of that?
It's all right. It's not affecting
You're
your
not on
work.
the radio when you're trying to work.
I do.
We just move if we can't work. You just move if you want it. If you don't.
The radio's got nothing to do. It helps some people to work. It does.
It will. It'll help some people. It won't help all, but it'll help some people.
No, we don't have to listen to it.
Rolling Stones blaring on. We're trying to write something about
I've
black
seen
beauty.
you.
It all
Have
depends
the
what
Rolling
work
Stones
you're
on
doing.
in
If
your
it takes a lot of concentration, then you do want the radio on. But if it, if it don't take much concentration, then you can listen to that. Would you like it where nobody could talk in the lessons?
No, if people want to talk in lessons, they should be put in one classroom. The others who didn't like, noise in the lessons, they should have a lesson on their own.
Yeah, and that isn't a policy. Why didn't you go to another school other than Countesthorpe
Because
College?
we couldn't get into another school. This is the only alternative. Also, we had to go to a private school.
Why didn't you go to private school?
Can't afford it.
I think about the college, there's plenty of opportunities. You can do most lessons that you want to do, and I think it's a good idea where you in the fourth year, you pick what lessons you want to do, which means that if you don't want to do maths or French, if it's going to be no good to you, then you don't have to do it. It's a waste of your time, and it's a waste of the teacher's time as well.
Once a week after school, the elected college committee meets. Students, staff and principal each has one vote. There are two contentious issues on this week's agenda. The Pupils' Union, the Countesthorpe branch of the National Union of School Students, the NUSS, want to produce their own magazine and don't want it vetted by the staff. But the principal wants a draft copy checked in advance for errors of fact. Within this democratic forum, students can and do argue with their headmaster.
It must remember, it is a student magazine, it's written by students, it's sold to students, it's produced, it is paid for by students, completely. It's not subsidised by the school in any way. So therefore, I think the staff ought to recognise that it is, in that sense, a valuable student activity, and that the staff should not attempt to involve themselves in it.
It's not a question of a member of staff saying they don't like this or they don't like that, but if a matter of fact were pointed out which were in error, all I'm asking is that the editorial should be, would indicate that they would be prepared to amend in the light of an error of fact being pointed out. It doesn't seem to me to be unreasonable to ask that.
I don't think that is really the important point. I think the important point is basically about ideas and issues and opinions involved,
The NUSS magazine is going to be shown to the chairman of committee. That was the agreement as I understood it. There was a long discussion about whose responsibility it is. It is a student's magazine. It's got to be their editorial control of it. But given the situation, if it's going to go out from school, then it should be shown to chairman of committee, and if there are any problems, they can then be dealt with.
A draft copy would be available in the school for people to look at. Suggestions can be made, but the agreement was that the NUSS decides what goes in it.
The meeting reached no conclusion. Next, an emergency motion to support the suspended teachers at the controversial William Tyndale School in Islington. Countesthorpe had also been the subject of criticism in its first 3 years, and the motion to support Tyndale was to cause an intense argument between the principal, John Watts, and teacher John Clossick.
If education is cut back, then the natural result is to call for chalk and talk, more discipline in schools, back to the old days, etc. We don't stand in that tradition. We stand for progressive developments. We stand for the real meaning of comprehensive education, which means abolition of streaming, it means small group and individualised work in the schools, and it means money being available. And therefore, I would argue that William Tyndale isn't simply 6 teachers in one school who did it badly. Our school could have been in that situation if the situation had been rather different. What would have happened then? We would desperately have wanted support from different parts of the country. All the material about indiscipline, pop music, school for scandal, all those charges have been levelled at us, and we've had to fight them. The proposal is calling simply that we write from committee calling for an end to their proposed victimisation in London.
John.
Although I don't envy their position, it seems to me that they have got into it as a result of certain things which we went to great pains to avoid. And it might be said that we could have been in the same position, but there are some good reasons why we're not. And basically it is because we chose during the time when we had the most conflict to take a path which made possible discussion. It was one which meant cooperation with the inspectorate who were coming in to make an inspection. It meant the acknowledgement that there were things which we needed to change within the school. Everyone agreed that at the time. In other words, it was a course which was not heading directly for open conflict. We stood firm on principles, but we were prepared to listen, we were prepared to modify, we were prepared to have people in. Now, the William Tyndale teachers, and it's very easy to be wise after the event, took certain actions which led to this head-on conflict. Now, in that way, I think they have led themselves into a position which we went to great pains to avoid getting ourselves into. And therefore, for us to identify ourselves with a course of action which has led to that sort of regression would seem to me to be quite inappropriate. Now, this is not ducking the issue. It's trying to get to the core of what it is that has enabled us to continue with the things that we believe in at Countesthorpe and the things which have blocked the way at William Tyndale. And I think that although we may well feel that individuals may want to support it, that as a body we ought not to send a letter in this term.
The principal lost the vote 13-2, so he called a moot, an open meeting of the whole school. At this, a consensus was reached that the letter of support should go from individuals, but not bear the official stamp of the college. These meetings are open to the whole school, but few students attend. Some don't go because they're after school, but most students feel they can get everything they need from the school through the individual relationships with their teachers. Countesthorpe's exam results are above the national average. Every student negotiates his or her own timetable, although they have to do English, maths and social studies in the team. When they do them is flexible. Jenny Barlow has chosen to do a play rehearsal now, which means she'll have to make up her mathematics later in the week.
I'm just winded. You'll be all right in a while. Just sit down for a bit. Hey, do you realise what we've done? What? We've beat the hardest gang in Leicester. Hey, great! Come on, I feel hot. Let's smack someone up. Kevin, this kid's looking for trouble. The black twat. What's that you got? What do you want? 10 number 6, please. No, make it 20. You got your money? Yes. 20 number 6. You got enough? Yes. Now, get your matches. Stop!
You know the fight, it's that you can see all the, fists going in action, but there's no real sound, like that.
Yeah,
there's no sounds, it's all...
So we ought to put some sounds in?
We've got to put some
How
sounds
do you
in.
reckon we do that?
'Cause when I went to drama, and me and Joanne had to do a fight, and, say somebody gets something in the stomach, when they're down here, they go like that, and if you get slapped round the face, you go like that when you're round the side.
If you can
got to get a bit more of that in.
Well, that takes a lot of rehearsing.
Yeah, it
And you've got to do that
It's
sort of
worth
thing.
it, though, I think.
Hello, Mrs. Strang.
Val, the girl who beat up the shopkeeper in the play, is one of Mr. and Mrs. Perry's 4 children who've gone to Countesthorpe. A month from the start of the term, Mick Gleave pays them his first visit to discuss how their daughter's getting on.
What happens if a child doesn't want to work? The child that will skive if he can, for want of a better word.
Yeah. Well, there's first of all, we don't just let that happen. I mean, if a child said they don't want to work, as most of them do, at some stage or other, then we put on a fair variety of pressures on them to get them to work, in the sense that we don't say, okay, if you don't work, we'll punish you, in the sense that you do 1,000 lines or you get kept in detention or something like that. But on the other hand, we do say we spend a lot of time talking about how important it is to work, which is something that they've got to know, and usually at the same time, because most students realise and still believe that school is a place in which they should be doing something. It's a matter of them saying, well, look, it's not that I don't want to work, it's that I don't like doing the work that I'm doing, and I want to do something else because I'm interested in something. Yeah. And then we find where we can lock into some interest that the students got, on the basis that if they're interested anyway, the work that they do in finding out about something, learning about something, discovering about it, is perhaps the most valuable form of education they can have anyway, because they're learning how to learn, which is the basic start.
But, I mean, you haven't got to just keep them interested, you've got to educate them. And
That's
you haven't got to do it just to keep them happy. This is
No.
my argument. You've got to make them do something that they can contribute when they leave school.
Well, I
and
mean,
they can take the place in society when they leave school. And half of them can't. They're just lost, in my opinion.
Well, I don't think that's true at all. I mean, what makes you say that?
Well, I'm convinced of it because, as I was saying the other day, Neil starts school. We can go off, Valerie, now, because I've had 4 going through the old system.
Mm.
And he left school. He went to tech, college. And he came home and he didn't know logarithms at all. He hadn't got the foggiest idea. Now, why don't he know logarithms? It's a basic thing when you leave school that you should be armed with that. Maureen, she's in the fourth year, is she? Fifth year.
She's taking O-levels next year.
We're talking to her tonight. She doesn't know the word evaluate. Now, this comes up every day. These are just common garden words that they should know at that age.
Well, I think that...
And I believe it's because you're keeping them interested and not making them do what they should do.
Well, what should a child do is the question. I mean, I think that when a student comes out of Countesthorpe, they have a lot of abilities. One of them is the ability to express themselves and to decide how to go about doing something. And the other one is that I think they do learn basic skills. Now, it happens that one of your children doesn't know the word evaluate. Well, that's not something that any education system is going to guarantee, that you'll know a particular word or something like that.
Yeah, but it's not an everyday word, Mick, evaluate. It comes up all the time, isn't it?
Yes, that's true.
Not in English, I'm talking about maths.
In general terms, that it's a word.
It worries me when you talk about, we've got to keep them interested, and she's really enthusiastic about plays and that, but she's 14. She's soon be... we're not playing games anymore.
No, I agree. I mean, I see that what she's doing with that play is every bit as valuable as doing, say, clause analysis in grammar, or in doing a spelling test, or in being hammered through some process of mathematics and algebra. I mean, I'm not saying that should be thrown out.
Well, they're getting very excited about it now.
Mr. Perry was invited into the college to see his daughter working in the team. He arrived in the middle of a game designed to illustrate an international trade war, and he was a little bemused.
Seats in 2 minutes.
All right, you drive a hard bargain.
Gone down, the prices have gone down.
You drive a hard bargain.
4 of them. 20 pounds? No, 3 of these. 4. Dave! Okay, 3, just do them.
They're playing, aren't they?
Yes.
They're playing.
Yes. And I wonder what's going to stay with them after, this game's finished.
Well,
rather than write something down that they can refer to.
Through this game, they've got a point of asking me questions. Now, what was it all about? And because they've got some involvement in the first place, I would say infinitely more will stay with it. I mean, last year we did this with a 5th year group. And as a result of that, right through the year, that was one of the things that we knew a fair bit about.
Yeah.
It just came through that way. Whereas if I'd done however brilliant a lecture on it, there'd have been 6 or 7 who'd have loved it. There'd have been 4 or 5 who were grafted away at it, and there'd have been 20 or so who just said, oh, that thing, we did it, I copied it down, but I never really took it in.
As you know, when I spoke to Mick before, I felt very strongly about this, and what I've seen now has altered me slightly, but I still feel that, as I said before, the introvert child could get lost. I still feel very strongly about this, because in normal teaching, every child does his work and you mark it. Nobody can hide then.
I don't accept that the conventional arrangement in a classroom does enable everybody to work. It's possible for the quiet individual to be totally overlooked in the middle of a conventional classroom. I know, I've seen it happen.
But not at the end of the day, when he still has to be marked, doesn't he?
Well, ours are assessed in their work, but I can assure you that people can get lost in the conventional situation and just become a name on the register. Now, they're never just a name on the register to us, but we're also giving them an understanding of how study and work can be enjoyable, and how to work with each other, and how to enjoy school. And I think a lot of kids who might otherwise have disliked coming to school at least enjoy coming to do the work. I wouldn't be happy if they were enjoying it and not learning. A school is a place in which you've got to learn.
Yeah.
But what we feel is that they're learning more and they're learning better because they enjoy it.